Good evening and welcome to My name is Joseph Thornley. I'm the CEO of 76 Engage, Metrolinx's public engagement partner for online consultation. I will be your moderator for this evening's discussion. And before we move forward, one important note. If you need closed captioning, we have it available. Simply click on the CC icon at the bottom of your video screen and you can see the closed captioning. At the outset of tonight's session, we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. In particular, these lands are covered by 20 treaties, and we have a responsibility to recognize and value the rights of Indigenous nations and peoples, and conduct business in a manner that is built on the foundation of trust, respect, and collaboration. Metrolinx is committed to building meaningful relationships with Indigenous peoples and to working towards meaningful reconciliation with the original caretakers of this land. Also at Metrolinx, we are concerned with safety. Anyone who rides the trains, on the buses, safety is important. In particular now, as you know, construction for the ECWE project has begun, which means that trucks, machinery, equipment will be operating in the Martin Grove, Kipling, and Scarlet areas soon. Please stay alert on these construction zones and obey all construction signage in the area. For sure, as traffic patterns change, cross only at designated crosswalks. Let's all be safe. So we've scheduled this evening's session to last about 90 minutes. First, Metrolinx will provide an update on what they are planning for the underground stations, as well as upcoming construction work, including headwall construction at Martin Grove and at Kipling. Following the presentation, we'll have a question and answer session. We'll start with some of the written questions that have been submitted by you in advance of the session. We've selected some that that are directly relevant to the content of tonight's session. There are some other questions that have been asked that aren't strictly relevant to tonight or have been answered in previous sessions, and there are recordings of all of the previous sessions that you can see to get at the other answers. And after the meeting, Metrolinx will post links within the answer section for those questions that refer to earlier subjects so that you can go back and get to that. But tonight we're going to focus on the topics of the actual presentation. We also have a call-in option for tonight's event. You'll see right below the video window, there's a yellow Join Zoom button. And as the presentation, once it's completed, you can go over to the Zoom room by clicking on that Join Zoom button. And Aman Gill will be there. She'll be your moderator in that room. And you'll be able to ask your question out loud if you'd like to do that. We'll keep an eye on how many people are in that room because we want to ensure that as many questions in that room can be answered as possible. So depending on how many people are there, we'll have more or less of the written questions at the beginning. We'll be flexible. We want to ensure that you have a chance to ask your question and that it's answered. And then finally, at the end of the session, because this is for questions and answers, you'll be hearing a lot of new information, but there is a very purposeful opportunity for you to provide input. Right under the presentation materials, there's a yellow button. Tell us what you think about the Martin Grove and Kipling station design. So at the end of the session, when you've had all of the information, when you have a chance to look at the presentation, please be sure to go there and provide your feedback, your input to Metrolinx so that it can be taken into account. Once again, if you've just joined us and if you need closed captioning, you can turn it on by clicking on the CC at the bottom of your video screen. I'd now like to introduce our panel of experts who will be presenting and answering questions today. First up, we have Joshua Engelyan. He is the program sponsor for the ECWE. With him is Omid Nakai, and the principal designer for Arup, Metrolinx's technical advisor on this project. Fernando Triana is the project director for West End Connectors, the constructor for the advanced tunneling contract. With them is Stephanie Chow, the communications and public engagement lead for West End Connectors. And they're joined by Nasser Qureshi, ECWE Senior Project Manager for Tunnels, and Mario Nolly, ECWE Senior Project Manager, Metrolinx. So if you've got the questions, hopefully our presenters have the answers tonight. So starting off with the presentation, I believe, Josh, that you're going to lead off.
Very excited to be here. Of the as well as in the planning and design stages on the stations, you're going to see that reflected in the material that we're bringing forward tonight. So this is our second engagement that we've had on the stations, following up from our engagement focused around Kipling and Eglinton. City of Toronto yourself and other community groups. And we're just highlighting here some of the key themes that we've been hearing in terms of feedback on the stations, both related to during construction, so keeping lanes open and minimizing construction impacts, comments on the stations themselves. So different from one another and around connection. So designs that Omid will be taking you through preliminary design.
Well, hopefully we're back. And for those who were watching, you may have seen us just disappear. We had an outage of the video feed. Hopefully you can see us now. And because we want to make the best use of our time, we're going to go straight to Joshua Engel-Jan, who's going to deliver our presentation from the top down so that you can see the whole presentation. And then if there are enough questions, if people want to ask questions, our panelists have agreed that they will stay a bit late after so that we can get all the way through things. So if you just, I just see that we've got sound. I was a bit distracted there. I apologize. Over to you, Joshua. We have sound and we have video.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Daniel. Things we have to deal with during these times, and appreciate everyone for patience and staying on. So just picking up, this is our second engagement on the stations. Our focus tonight is on the 4 underground stations, Martin Grove, Kipling, Islington, and Royal York and Eglinton. We will have, in our next round of engagements, be bringing forward material on the elevated stations at Jane and Scarlet, and look forward to talking about that. In the last number of months, we've been in a number of consultation and challenge sessions with City of Toronto and TTC staff. We had our last public session on Kipling in December, and we've had a number of elected official briefings as well as meetings with other community groups, and we've heard a number of key themes around the stations that we've highlighted here. So thank you for all your feedback to date. In particular, we've heard comments around what we should be doing during construction, keeping lanes open, minimizing construction impacts, the station themselves in terms of ensuring they're safe and accessible to all users. They're attractive, modern, and distinctive from one to another, and they have smaller footprints and blend into the community and natural surroundings, reflecting the local context of the Eglinton West corridor. And then in terms of connections, making sure there's good bike connections and bike parking, as well as the transit-to-transit connection, so the bus to rapid transit transfer. Working well and not being too congested. So those are all key things that I think we're hoping you'll see reflected, and we'll look to get further impact from you as we go through the preliminary designs for each of the stations. And we will be coming back later in the year as we've advanced the station designs further to give you a better sense of the features of each of the stations. So this is our first step in that engagement. So if we can go to the next slide, please. It worked this time. Fantastic. So these are a number of the key considerations during preliminary design. And we've talked to these in the past, so just quickly in terms of private property limiting impacts to homes and businesses, the community, considering how the station serves as a hub in the community and connects to nearby developments. There's transit and traffic in terms of the construction and limiting road occupancy and road impacts, ensuring good connections in terms of travel time and connectivity. From an environmental perspective, we know Eglinton has many trees. There's a very well-treated area, so considering the canopy and the impacts as well, I'm sure we'll talk about the station energy efficiency and how we're looking at the overall kind of environmental performance of the station. And then, of course, constructability and deliverability of these underground stations, are complex construction projects. And this is one of the features, as we've highlighted in the past, where for 3 of the 4 underground stations, we've been able to put the station box outside of the Eglinton right-of-way, which allows the construction largely to happen, not in the roadway. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to Omid to take us through a bit more about the station design principles and to walk us through preliminary designs for each of the 4 underground stations. Over to you, Omid.
Thank you, Josh, and good evening, all. Thank you for coming along for this session. Next slide, please. So just building on what Josh already mentioned about some of the feedback that we got from our previous sessions, the station's design principles are mainly built around the idea of benefiting the context that we are locating, and also the neighborhood and community that we are locating the stations. So there are 4 principles there that we are working very fiercely to make sure that we are abiding to. One of them is create safe and efficient passenger connection to the stations. And in that, it's very important for us to make sure that, passengers and the safety of them are well taken care of, including the pedestrians and folks that are using the buses. So 80% of our passengers are going to use the north-south buses, and, the connection between the bus stops and the stations are very big key for us in the design of the stations. The next principle that we are really again pushing forward with is to improve the passenger journey from outside the station all the way to the train. And in order to do that, we are really applying a user-centered design for the whole line. We are bringing natural light to the station platforms, something which is quite new in Eglinton, because of the way that the station boxes are located off corridor outside the road. We had the opportunity to bring natural light down all the way to concourse and platform. We're using a way of station design to make sure that the wayfinding is very intuitive and very natural. And we are also making sure that the stations are very safe and accessible for all member of communities. We also create very inviting outdoor public space, especially trying to consider the scale and materials that we are using around the station plazas, and the way that we're going to plant and augment those plazas so that they are blending with the existing environment well. We are also making sure that these stations are integrated into the local context as much as possible by understanding and analyzing the local and future conditions around each station as they are sitting in the corner of intersection. Really, the way that all of these principles came together is the combination and analysis of the subway design standards and program that is happening right now with Metrolinx, and the community input that we had, also really analysis of our site conditions. So bringing it all together, we are trying to establish these principles for all of our stations. Next slide, please. In this slide, I'm just trying to explain to you how some of those principles are translated in the way that we are designing the station. And later, I'm going to show you some of the images and site plans of those stations. So, in order to create a safe and efficient passenger connection to the station, from the curb, we start our action basically. So we start by having curb cuts to improve pedestrian safety on the curb. Then we have bus stops as close as possible to the entrance of the station, and then where it's possible, we are introducing bus laybys. We are introducing bike racks around the station entrances, and we are locating the ancillary and emergency building in the right place to make sure that is creating a safe environment. In order to improve the passenger experience and make sure that we have enhanced the quality of a user journey through the stations, we introduce first of all at least 2 elevators for the entrance, and that provided a redundancy for elevators, which means that passengers with impaired mobility, they can use the elevators from the ground all the way to platforms at any point in time. The elevators are through elevators, which means, again, the passengers on wheelchairs, they don't need to turn around or rotate in their journey. We also introduce unique station platform characteristics in order to enhance the quality of station platform, but also make it more identifiable for passengers, going from station to the other station. That was a kind of reflection of hearing from the previous feedback that we had from community, that some of the stations they have seen in other projects, they are quite homogeneous, and they are suggesting us to somehow improve the character of platforms in these stations, and we are trying to do so. We also introduced skylights, as I mentioned in the previous slide, to bring natural lights in the passenger journey as much as possible, not only at the ground level, but also through the concourse and platform. We are creating inviting outdoor public spaces by introducing public plazas around our stations, having contextual planting around our station, and also having green roofs for our stations, and not only to respond to Toronto Green Standards requirements and some of the design standards that Metrolinx has put forward for subway program, but also to create, to blend the station roofs with the green context that they are located in. And the other one that we are trying to do is integrating to the local context. And in order to do that, the stations are such that right now, when the stations are built, the existing number of lanes on Eglinton will be maintained. We are minimizing the station's footprint as much as possible to provide more opportunities around the stations for the community, but also to have less impact through the construction on the community, for the community, and also to the amenities around all of these stations and the way that the neighborhood is formed. We are protecting the heritage building, especially in the case of Royal York Station, where we have Mary Read House, which is a heritage building, and I'll show you also some of the design ideas that we have deployed there. And also quite a lot, we are working with the existing terrain around the stations to make sure that we are not disrupting the morphology of urban terrain around these stations, and try to blend to the local context as much as possible. Next slide, please. So this slide actually very, I would say clearly summarize the passenger journey from the ground all the way to platform, and some of the ideas that we have deployed in order to enhance the quality of passenger journey. As you can see, starting from the right, passengers, they come to the entrance very quickly from the bus stop, which is very close to the station entrance, and I will show you on the side plan later. And they have a very linear, passenger journey all the way down to the platform. You can see that first, after they pass through the gates, in the just going from the unpaid area to the paid area, starting from the right, coming to the left. You see that they have two elevators fully glazed in front of them, and those elevators are through elevators, which means that they can those two elevators and they go straight down to the platform without stopping anywhere. They go straight down to the platform. They can also take the escalators or stairs going down through that this volume open space where they see as they descend toward the concourse, they also see the surrounding environment around the stations through that glazing of the entrance, but also we have skylights right on top of the vertical circulation, the escalators and stairs, and that skylights bring light not only to the escalators and stairs, but all the way down deep to the platform. Once they get to concourse, again, they can continue their journey on their escalators or stairs down to the platform. And you can see, again, we have utilized another skylight on top of the escalators, bringing natural light down. And with that, we also created a very spacious space, at the concourse and also right above the skylights. So at any point in time, whilst passengers going down to platform, they also feel quite connected to the outside world, but also they don't feel they feel actually there's ample space provided for them, and the space is quite well lit and very very pleasant as you go down. And once you got to the platform, I mean, we indicatively showed a kind of color, identifying that specific station as they are, just trying to just send a message that basically we are utilizing color for platforms to identify the location of each station. So it's, in a way, this slide somehow summarizes exactly how a passenger goes from a bus stop all the way down to the platform, and vice versa. And next slide, please. So now in next few slides, I'm going to take you through each site plan. So starting from west to east, the first station that we're going to talk about is Martin Grove. Martin Grove is sitting on the north east intersection. This is the only intersection of Martin Grove and Eglinton Avenue. This is the only station where the station entrance and ancillary building, they are sitting on the northeast. All the rest of underground stations, they are sitting on the northwest side of the intersection. In this station, you can see that we have station entrance located very closely to the corner of intersection on the northeast side, and we have the bus stops very close to the station entrance. We have station entrance, located on the northeast of the intersection, and you can see the station building. And now you can relate it to the previous section that you saw, station building with the skylight on top of it, taking the passengers down through that station entrance. You can see that again, station entrance, as you can see, they are located on the station box, and the station box here shown with that dashed blue line below, and you can see that the station footprint is actually quite minimized, respecting, and folks from Western Connector later, they're going to talk about the head walls, but we have tried to obviously respect those head walls, but also try to build the station footprint as efficient as possible, so that we can respect the surrounding environment as much as possible too, and disrupt as minimal as possible. Then going toward east, you can see that we have consolidated emergency exit building at the eastern side of this site, making sure that this, we have only one building as emergency building and ancillary building, as with all the associated technical rooms that they are needed for the station, and one building again not to scatter random technical building around the site. And then in the middle, you can see that we have introduced the skylight and then created a kind of public plaza right in the middle. You can also appreciate the fact that we have tried to create a line of trees between the Eglinton Avenue and the station entrance and emergency building, in a way trying to use natural greenery not only as a kind of boundary between the street and station plazas, and that way not only it protects the pedestrians and on the sidewalk, but also during summer it helps with natural shading over the station entrances, and that helps with the overall thermal comfort of the station entrances. Next slide, please. I forgot to say also that these are work in progress, and they might also change as the project is going to get procured, but I think the intention is still the same. In terms of Kipling Station, I think last time we came to get public feedback here, and we presented you with 3 options at the time. So one option was a northwest option, where the station entrance and ancillary building were located in the woodlot, as minimized as possible, but at the time, it's shown here that it was slightly in the woodlot. We also had the southwest option and the hybrid option. The hybrid option was the one that had the least impact on the woodlot. We explained at the time that we are not entertaining southwest option for several reasons, including buildability and deliverability. And we explained, some of the ideas between northwest option and hybrid option. We got feedback, from the community that the hybrid option was more preferred, and the idea was obviously to protect as much as possible the woodlot, and then also some others, 45% also, suggested the northwest. So what we came up with, which I'm going to show you now, is a kind of hybrid between the hybrid option and northwest, where we try to next slide please, minimize the station entrance and ancillary building as much as possible, whilst only also moving the Eglinton Avenue towards south and realign it only 3 meters, and that way also trying to protect the MUP and trail also down on the south as it is, and that way we also managed to reduce the number of impacted trees on the northwest corner. So this option, as you can see, the station entrance has minimized quite a lot, compared to the past, and we have created a kind of slot to get the passengers to a concourse level in this station, and then from there guide them through to go to the platform. In terms of the way that it's going to interact with the intersection, again, the bus station is very, very close to the station entrance, and passengers going to get off from north-south bus coming down. And next to the station entrance, they're just going to walk a few meters to get to the station entrance, and from there go very linearly all the way down to the platform without any bends and turns, and the passenger journey is very, very straightforward. Again, you can see that the toolkit that we devised here is very much also similar to what you already saw in Martin Grove, and the idea is, trying to abide to our design principles as much as possible, as I mentioned. So we have a line of trees again, working as a kind of boundary between the station entrance and ancillary building and the Eglinton Avenue. We have the bike parks on the south side of the station entrance, again, providing enough bike racks for passengers to use. We have a public plaza in front of the station entrance, and we also have the sidewalks coming from the north connected to this plaza, and we have also minimized the impact to the woodlot here. Next station, please. Next station that we have here is Islington. Islington is an interesting station because as you come from north toward Eglinton, you have a significant gradient change from the road that you see with the north sign there, all the way down to the Eglinton. So the level difference there is almost around 5 to 6 meters. So what we have tried to do here is actually working with this terrain and try to talk basically station entrance, here into this, existing green area, and then by also introducing the green roof, in a way we have reblended the station entrance and ancillary building with this surrounded greenery, which we think that it has been successful. We also have the same way. We have the bike racks. We have the trees on the south, again, to be as a boundary between the station entrance and the sidewalk and Eglinton Avenue. We have the station bus, again, bus stop very close to the station entrance, and the journey from bus stop to the station entrance very, very close. It's less than 10 meters to 15 meters from the bus stop to get to the station entrance, and then from there you get down to the platform, very straightforward. Again, we have the skylights to bring the natural light down to the concourse and platform. and we also have we have tried to minimize the footprint such that we respect the surrounded context as much as possible. The number of we have proposed planting around this station quite deliberately, again to protect for our passengers as much as possible, but also we also created a sidewalk in front of our station, which before it wasn't present around this area. Next slide, please. So just before I explain the last station, which is Royal York, you probably have noticed that one of the approaches that we have done here around the station design and the plaza that we have around the intersection is try to create a sense of place and a meeting point on the intersection, and use this opportunity as a place-making exercise, even though it's quite surgical and intentional and is minimized by deliberation. However, we have created a language, a very modern and efficient language around the station design, so that the passengers can relate to. And in the last station, you can also see in Royal York, again, we have the station entrance on the northwest of the intersection. You have the bus stop, here, standing right in front of the station entrance. And then from there, passengers walk to the station entrance, within less than a few meters, and then from there, take their journey. And that section that you saw earlier was a section taken from this station. I think there are a few things that, again, maybe you have to notice here. And in addition to the trees working as a boundary between the station sidewalks and entrances and Eglinton Avenue, you will notice a few other things. One is you see that the Mary Read House and the angles from the station entrance and ancillary building are almost 45 degrees, toward Mary House, trying to respect the view toward Mary Read House from the passengers or users that they're using the streets, or the sidewalks on the other side, also sidewalk around the station. Within the station entrance, also, as you noticed earlier in the section, our entrances are quite transparent, and therefore where the passengers are using the station, they have the view toward Mary Read House. The other thing that we have managed to make sure that is intact is the road accessing Mary Read House is going to be restated the way that it was. So again, respecting the heritage aspect of Mary Read House. And there is a stone wall right now on the southern side of the skylight. You can see that during the construction, that stone wall has to be taken out, and it's going to be restated again after the construction. That stone wall is also part of Mary Read House, and it's part of the listed building. So again, going back to our principles, we have tried to consolidate our the emergency exit building and ancillary buildings in one building, away from the main entrance, and that way we minimize the overall footprint of the stations. And again, the blue dashed line here shows how the station footprint has been consolidated as much as possible. Next slide, please. So I think that takes me to the end of my part of the presentation. Now I'm going to give it back to Josh to take you through next slide. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Omid. That was great. Get a drink of water. Really appreciate that. So this was our review of the preliminary design of the 4 underground stations. As I mentioned, we are going to be bringing forward similar level of content for the elevated stations at Scarlet and Jane, as well as Renforth Station in future engagements. But for now, we have the link up here. After this meeting, later on, we'd love it for you to go on and you can provide feedback on key design principles as well as key station features that you would like to see at each of the underground stations. And we got great responses, over 200 responses to our Kipling survey, and so we're really looking forward to good feedback on this next round of surveys. And if we can just go to the next slide. This is just giving you more links, and in the past, and we've said this, we're happy to set up smaller meetings with community groups. If there are community groups around any of these stations in particular who would like to have a more in-depth conversation on the station in your area or several of those stations, you can reach out to us, and we'd be happy to set those up. The other point that I'll make is there are emergency exit buildings and traction power substations. Those are what we refer to as the ancillary buildings. So we will be also coming back to talk to you about the proposed designs for those features as well. So that's we're going to take questions in a bit, but before that, I'm happy to pass it on to Fernando and the West End Connectors team to provide an update on the exciting construction of the tunneling and the tunnel boring machines.
Thank you very much, Josh, and good evening, and thank you very much to all of you for joining to this virtual open house. So in the next slide, we are going to present you what is the advance of the works in the launch shaft with the assembly of the TBMs. As you can see in this first slide, that this is the situation, is an image that shows Rennie's cut ahead being lowered into the shaft. That photo was taken in January 2022. As we mentioned in previous virtual open house, we are going to start digging the tunnels from Renford and make all the way towards Scarlet. Okay, the names that you selected for these two TBMs, Rexy and Rennie, the two TBMs that we will use to construct the tunnel, they are being assembled. The first one of them, Rennie, you will see in the next slide, is progressing really well. It will be the first one that will be launched. Please, the next slide. And you can see in this next slide that is the situation of the assembly of the TBMs in February 2022. Not only the seals of the two TBMs were assembled. At that point, the trailing gear of the first TBM were placed. You can see here a pretty spectacular photo of the bridge. And note that this is the piece that basically is the connection between the seals and the trailing gear was lowered into the shaft. Next slide, please. And here you can see a picture of the layout of you can see the whole launch shaft and with the TBM pre-assembly and the rest of the elements that we will need as well for the construction of the tunnel, as the tower crane, we will lower the pieces that will create the final lining of the tunnel, the ground plan that we will inject the extra dose of the tunnel, and the rest of the elements to support the excavation. At this point, we are with the testing and commission of the first of the TBMs. We expected to start tunneling the second or third week of April. At this point, when we start the tunneling, overnight work and extra hauling in the Renford area is expected. And in any case, a notice with more information will be shared in advance of the work starting. I think it is actually and that notification is starting to happen. So that change will happen in the second, third week of April, as already mentioned. Next slide, please. Another update that we want to share with you is about the oncoming construction. In this case, it's about the extraction shaft. Because of some issues with permitting, we have to adjust a little bit our construction with the intention to mitigate some minor delays that we had and try to deliver the project on time. No? And that is our commitment. So over the next few months, WEC will shift the 4 Eglinton Avenue West Lane approximately 10 meters south between Scarlet Road and the pedestrian bridge. the bridge. This work is necessary to prepare the extraction shaft work, and that will follow the realignment of the Eglinton Avenue. And this realignment will be in the final configuration, so will not need to be realigned again. Okay. You can see in the sketch that we have prepared that the traffic lanes will be reduced to 2 lanes, one eastbound lane, another westbound lane, along construction zone, and left turns will be restricted out of the driveway of Ridgeview. And the reason of that is to prevent of traffic jams in Eglinton Avenue. The 3 bus stops will be temporarily relocated, so will be on service, but in a different location. Crews will close the northwestbound lane for 1 week to build a temporary bus platform. The multi-use path and sidewalk will be closed from east of Bridge to Scalar Road, but pedestrians and cyclists will be detoured to a temporary path that we will construct north of construction that you can see in the sketch with a blue color. Okay, so will be north of the construction zone. As there is a intersection between the construction traffic and the pedestrian and cyclist traffic, a traffic control person will be on site to oversee cyclists, pedestrian, and construction traffic as it crosses the temporary multi-use path, and the pedestrian bridge will remain open during the construction. Okay, will not cut the surface to the pedestrian bridge. In any case, advance notice will be provided and all closures will be clearly marked, okay, before that happens. Next slide, please. The next works that we will start is about the Headwall. No? And many times that the question is, not that we receive, is what is a Headwall? No? The Headwall is our underground support wall located at the east and the west ends of the station location. These are 2 of the 4 walls of the temporary support of the excavation that is necessary to permit the excavation first and after the construction of the station. The TBMs bored through the Headwalls, so this Headwall needs to be constructed before. That is a technical reason that to prevent entrance of material and be sure that the Headwalls are sealed against the tunnel, that needs to be done before the tunnel goes through. Okay, that is the technical reason that recommends to construct the Headwalls at this stage of the Eglinton Crosstown West station. There will be 4 underground stations, so Martin Grove, Kipling, Islington, and Royal York. So we need to construct in this project 8 Headwalls for these 4 stations. As well as in this section of the Eglinton Crosstown West Station, we have 2 emergency exits. We have to do a very similar thing, constructing the Headwalls, 2 for each emergency. So in total, 4 Headwalls for these 2 emergency exits. Okay, one of them will be between Kipling Avenue and Islington Avenue, and the second one between Islington Avenue and Royal York Road. Okay. At this point, after this, I'm going to hand over to Stephanie Cho, our communication lead, that is going to present the next slides.
Thanks, Fernando. So the first head wall that we'll be working on will be at the Martin Grove and Eglinton Avenue West intersection. And as you can see in our sketch here, we will be working in April and working for approximately 7 months. In those 2 construction zone areas, you can see that we will be closing a portion of the westbound north lane on Martin Grove, just in front of the construction zone, to allow for construction vehicles to enter and exit the area. We will be keeping that north sidewalk open, and we will have advance notice as well as markers and flag people to make sure that pedestrians and cyclists are able to cross that area safely. We'll also be relocating the bus stop at the northeast corner of the intersection, just west, on the west side of the intersection. Next slide, please. So the next head wall that we'll be working on will be at Kipling Station, starting in May and going till approximately spring 2023. As you can see here, we will be closing 2 lanes temporarily while we do this work, and the 2 lanes that we close will interchange throughout the construction period, so they won't always be the 2 at the south here that you see in the sketch. They will move, but the important thing to remember is that we will always keep 1 eastbound and 1 westbound lane open to traffic at all times during this construction. Traffic will also be able to turn left and right at the intersection. We will be keeping all of these sidewalks and the multi-use path open during this time, and we will be temporarily relocating the bus stop at the southwest corner of the intersection, just east of the construction zone, as you can see there. And again, advance notice will be provided, and all the closures will be clearly marked for any pedestrians and cyclists in the area. Go to the next slide, please. So during this headwall work, we expect the impact to the residents to be very minor. You can expect noise from equipment and drills and trucks that happen during the headwall work. We have mitigations in place to reduce the dust, such as water sprays and biodegradable dust suppressants. We do have noise vibration monitors installed on properties around the construction area, residences, offices, and commercial buildings, and just in the vicinity of the construction. And this equipment is put there to help measure and minimize the noise and vibration impacts throughout the project term. And we also do it to prioritize the community's safety and well-being. So if you have any concerns about the construction that Fernando and I went over just now, you can always contact the project hotline. That's 24/7. And it's listed there, and you can find it on our website as well. I think I hand it back over to Josh.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Fernando and Stephanie. I appreciate everyone sticking around. Lots of material, and we're looking forward to questions. We just have slides here on how you can continue to get in touch with us. So Joseph, I'll pass it back to you so we can start to get into some of the questions.
Well, thank you, Josh, and thank you to the presenters. That was a lot of information and good information. And a number of people are in the Zoom room. I think that what we'll do is we'll flip around the order in which we usually do things. We usually start with the written questions, but tonight, because of the outage and the fact that time is passing by, we'll go to the Zoom room first to be sure that everybody who's in there has a chance to have their questions asked. So again, if you've just joined us during the presentation, right below the video window where you're watching this, there's a yellow Join Zoom button. You can click on that and go to Zoom room, and Aman Gill is there. She'll be your moderator, and we'll let you know when you can ask a question. In the meantime, I understand, Aman, that some people in the Zoom room have typed in questions in the chat, so perhaps we could start out with you and go over to you now.
Yep, of course. Thank you, Joseph, and thank you everyone for attending. So our first question is from Mona. And it is, will the stations also have an additional exit on the south side of the street?
I can speak to that one. Mona, thank you for your question. So as you saw from the station preliminary designs, and this also connects to where the tunnel alignment is, which is typically at the intersections north of the roadway. All of the station entrances are north of the road. Each of the underground stations is planned with one main entrance. They're not currently planned with any other secondary entrances. We are working with City of Toronto in terms of ensuring other intersection Vision Zero improvements can happen during station construction, things like dedicated crossings, improved crosswalks, wider sidewalks, things like that, to ensure that we have really good, safe crossings of the road. and we also are working with TTC to ensure that if on the main north-south routes, the bus stops are currently south of the intersection, that they can be moved to the north of the intersection so that the buses can stop as close as possible to the station. So hopefully they're not currently planned with the south entrance. It's focused on the north, and that's connected to some of those principles of fitting into the community, minimizing the impacts. But hopefully through that explanation, you're also seeing how we're trying to ensure there's also really good connections. Back to you in the Zoom room.
Thanks, Josh. I think Aman's having some audio issues. So I'm just going to go over to the second question. Is this what construction will look like at Kipling and Eglinton? That feels very disruptive as there are residential buildings nearby.
I presume that that's referring to some of the Headwall construction slides. So I'm just going to give a bit of an intro, and then Fernando and Stephanie, I'll pass it over to you in terms of how we mitigate construction impacts. So the stations are being built in two main phases. So the first phase is the head walls. So that's the piles that go into the ground, that they basically establish the box for the underground station, and that's what the tunnel boring machines tunnel through. And then the second phase, which is a future contract, is station construction. So it's actually digging out the earth, excavating that box, and building the station. So what you've seen in the presentation today is the construction impacts associated just with that first part, the head wall construction. So maybe I can pass it to you, Fernando, to talk about just a little bit about how we mitigate those impacts from construction.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. No, in terms of our part of the construction, that is the construction of the head walls of the future station. So first thing that is important to say is that our work is gonna last for a matter of months. It's not a matter of years that we're gonna be in constructing those head walls. So that is not gonna be for a long time, at least in our part of the work. Another important thing is our work is gonna happen only during the day. Okay, so it's not anticipated to do work during the night in those locations, the head wall location. So it's another thing that this is important to consider. As Stephanie mentioned before, is our intention and is included in our contract, that we have to limit our noise and be always under the allowable decibel level that is permitted by the city of Toronto. And there is several mitigation measures. I think this is basically that we will implement in terms of minimize the noise level that mentioned before are not expected to be higher or exceed the allowable decibel levels.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Fernando.
you very much for that. I'm going to jump in here because I think that we have some persistent sound problems in the Zoom room, but Gurjeet has just sent me a text with the next question that was posed in the Zoom room, and it was from Peter, who is also wanting to talk about what we can expect at the key intersections over the next few years. We know from experience that the Eglinton Crosstown project has caused issues with auto and transit movability. This is a very exciting project for this area, but what kind of regular delays can we expect?
To answer Peter's question, at the intersections over the next few years, so the next few years is mainly the construction of the headwalls and of the road realignment. So, Fernando, Nasser, between yourselves, are you able to speak to that in terms of traffic impacts and things like that?
I can start it off, and Fernando, feel free to add. Thank you for your question. So again, taking it, it's regarding the immediate near future construction for the head walls at the intersections. As the presentation slides was indicating, that the construction at any of these head wall station locations will remain active for a few months. Approximately 7 months was pointed out at the Kipling location. None of the bus routes will be rerouted, as you probably is quoting the ECLRT example. So all of the bus routes will remain on the same route. There will be no detouring to the side streets. However, bus stops will be slightly shifted 50 to 100 meters approximately to the either side of where it is today to accommodate the construction. Right turn, left turn lanes movements will also be maintained off of Eglinton onto the side street or intersecting streets. However, there will be lane closures, lane reductions approaching to the intersections. You will experience that for a few months, generally 7 to 10 months, you can say, at every intersection. And then crews will move on to the other parts of the project, other elements of the project, and tunneling will continue, as you know, that would be underground, no impact to the surface traffic movements. Fernando, you like to add anything? Feel free.
Yeah, only I will add that this is Nasir explained really well. I think this is some impact is going to happen. No? So we are going to take some lanes for the construction of the head walls, but there is a matter, as we say before, it's a matter of months, not a matter of years that we're going to be there. There is mitigation measures that are going to be implemented, and we're going to take the minimum number of lanes necessary to execute the works, but some impacts are going to expect it. We are going to some of the mitigation measures to not to play with the timing of the traffic lights, to basically to expedite the traffic in Eglinton, along the Eglinton, and to try to minimize the impacts as much as possible.
Thank you for that. A follow-up came in the Zoom room, and in terms of the construction, is there going to be a live camera on the boring machines? Will the public be able to see the progress and see what's going on?
I can answer that, Fernando.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so there are no live cameras facing the tunnel boring machines right now. However, in a couple of weeks, we will be releasing the time-lapse video that we've been working on for the past couple of months. It's really exciting. We have a very awesome milestone for the project coming up when we start tunneling. So this time-lapse video will show the arrival of the TBMs, all their different sections being assembled, and then the eventual beginning of tunneling. So no live camera, but some awesome footage coming up.
Yeah, and I promise that the life inside of the TBM is very boring. Permit me the joke, but this is a very repetitive process because we are basically repeating every 1.7 meters the same cycle. So that is pretty boring. I'm pretty sure the Metrolinx is very typical that we have some videos that give an example or give an idea about how is the process of the working in a TBM. But it's not easy to take a shot of the inside of the TBM because it's pretty long with a lot of equipment in the middle. So that is not easy to get a very nice shot and to have an idea about what is happening in the TBM. It's much usually more productive or more explicative is to have a video that displays how the process works.
I can add just quick comment to that. So we might, we'll have to discuss it further, but we'll have to see if we can convey and message to the community how both TBMs eastbound and north side and south side, both TBMs are progressing on a Google Map type of format. So we will be communicating to you as well as how we are progressing underground in digging up the tunnels.
Well, thank you for that. Now, two more questions going back to the issue of traffic and disruption during the construction. Two more questions were just asked in the Zoom room, and one of them relates to buses, and I think that you had mentioned that at some point Eglinton would be down to one lane in each direction. And the question is it possible to have a dedicated bus drop-off lane at the Eglinton stations? Because currently traffic backs up when the bus stops to drop off passengers. Are you able to alleviate that in any way? And
Joseph,
perhaps I can just ask the second and related question. I think it's related. Are there going to be parking lots of any sort along Eglinton Avenue for subway passengers? Parking lots for people who are coming in with their cars. So bus lanes and parking lots.
Thanks, Joseph. So a few pieces there. And can we confirm, are those bus drop-off areas, is that during construction or is that in the permanent condition once the stations are constructed? Well, maybe we could address both. So Nasser, are you able to speak to the bus condition during construction?
Yes, I can, certainly. Assuming that the question is about the upcoming construction and not the ultimate condition where the stations, new LRT stations would be built on Eglinton Avenue. So for the upcoming construction, if a bus stop is impacted on Eglinton Avenue, there are few which will be impacted at the intersections. We will be looking at the duration of this impact. So with our partner organization, TTC, we will be working on the relocated new location of the stop and movement of and building of the bus shelters or the concrete pads for meeting the accessibility guidelines. But it will continue to be onboarding and lighting from off of Eglinton Avenue. There will be similar to what we have today, but we would probably not be looking at the additional laybys or additional bus space. It would be off of the Eglinton, similar to what we have today.
And Mario, could you speak to bus laybys in the permanent condition for the stations?
Yes, thanks for the question. So in the permanent configuration, like Omid mentioned, we're gonna position the bus stops as close as possible to the station entrance building to minimize passengers crossing number of traffic lanes. So I'll give you an example. Southbound on Islington, for instance, the stop will be at the northwest corner. There will be a lay-by area to accommodate 2 articulated buses as per TTC's requirements.
Thanks, Mario. So there will be laybys. And just the last part of the question, which has to do with parking at stations, I think I can address that one. We're not planning for any type of parking lots at the stations. This is pretty consistent with the other Eglinton rapid transit stations along the rest of the corridor, and partly due to the amount of space that requires, partly due to really trying to provide good connections in terms of walking, cycling, and transit to those stations. So that, and we're working closely, as we've mentioned, with City of Toronto and TTC, ensuring we have really good connections to the stations.
Josh, if I can complement what you mentioned already, and
Sure.
Mario mentioned, the bus lay-by is where geometrically and from corridor width perspective, is possible is going to be implemented as much as possible aligned with TTC requirement. But that's not going to be 100% everywhere.
You're saying just because of the restrictions in terms of the width of the corridor and the space. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Omid. Back to you, Joseph.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Sound and vibration, tunnel boring machines, a lot of heavy equipment. One of the written questions, the questioner says, my concern lies mostly with noise and vibration. What kind of sound barriers are you going to erect? And if we report excessive noise and your findings differ from the sensor readings, how will you resolve this if we're telling you it's harsher than your sound sensors are indicating? So can you talk about the sound, please?
Sure.
Yeah,
I was going to pass it to you, Fernando, so go for it.
Yeah. I imagine that. No, in terms of noise, so first the question is about the noise and vibration of the TBMs. And about that, I would like to share with the people that are joining to this virtual open house today that I was involved as well in the Eglinton East tunnels. That was a very similar project to this one. In that project that will go through the Eglinton East part, I think it is we only have a few complaints about noise and vibration caused by the construction of the tunnel itself. And was related to the trains, okay, to the trains that we use to feed the TBM. In this project, we learn about that, and we have implemented a different system. We are not using trains; we are using a different vehicle that we have rubber tires. So we expect that we are not going to have any vibration or noise caused by the vehicles that are feeding the TBM. So that this is a clear improvement in comparison with other projects in the city of Toronto and with Metrolinx. For the construction of the heat walls, we would like to transmit to the people that is around that is the construction of that noise wall is a construction that is in the same magnitude of work that the construction of the heat wall. So it doesn't make much sense to construct a noise wall that probably is going to create more noise and more disturbance to the neighbors than the heat wall itself. Okay, so that is the reason that we don't consider that is the best mitigation measure in terms of noise and vibration in terms of the heat walls. In the extraction shaft that we anticipated is first we are gonna do the construction. Is anticipated to do the construction during the day only. And we anticipate that our construction work is not going to exceed the allowable noise levels. So in general, the people shouldn't have many problems with respect to noise and vibration in that area of the structure shaft. In any case, if anyone has any complaint about noise and vibration in any part of this project, as we have presented in the slides, there is a number, and there is they can contact the 24/7 number. They contact through the web page. They can contact us, and we will address the complaint, and we will try to mitigate as much as possible and try to avoid any unnecessary noise or vibration.
Okay, thank you. And I think the question was, who would, if a resident puts in a complaint and you're trying to work on it, who will actually intervene or mediate between you and the resident if they continue to complain and say, thanks for what you're doing so far, but it's still very noisy? Is there anyone else that they can call upon to help resolve any disputes with you as you're constructing, or are you the ultimate decider?
Joseph, thanks for the follow-up. I know West End Connectors has provided their contact information in the slides.
Yes.
Metrolinx is also setting up smaller community tables through construction liaison committees, where we can talk in more detail about different things happening in the community. And of course, community members can always reach out through Metrolinx if there are questions or concerns. So we'll do our best to address whatever concerns come up in the community to the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I want to ask a question that was submitted about accessibility in the platform design. The questioner is suggesting that island platforms are not as safe, not as practical for people who have vision restrictions. I may not have heard it clearly. Are you using island platforms? And if you are you taking the accessibility issue into account? And what are you able to do by way of design to make it navigable for people with low vision?
Joseph, I can take this one. An important question. And definitely Metrolinx received this challenge through the development and construction of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. We are, for the most part, using island platforms on Eglinton Crosstown West. And we're building on a lot of the lessons learned from the ECLRT project. So as part of the ECLRT, Eglinton Crosstown LRT, we actually convened a group that included the CNIB and other persons with visual impairments to develop requirements for something called tactile guidance tiles. These are tiles on the platform that somebody with a visual impairment can use to help them navigate the platform in a safe way. So those are part of our requirements now. They're compliant with things like AODA, and we're going to be adopting those as part of our requirements for the island platforms. In addition, of course, we're also implementing things around the overall accessibility of the station, and we already spoke to things like redundant elevator access, so that if one elevator is out of service, there's still accessible access to the station.
Just to add to Josh's point, the consolidation of all of those standards through Metrolinx design standards, the Universal Design Standards by Metrolinx now is published, is online, building on AODA guidelines, international best practice, as well as CSA standards. And the name of that standard is DS02, and it's publicly available. And member of publics, they can access it online.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful information. I'm going to ask one more question. We're coming up to the end of our allotted time. This questioner had submitted it in writing, but during the presentation you were showing station designs with skylights and green roofs. This questioner is wondering whether you looked at the feasibility of including solar panels on the station roofs, or anything that would help to reduce the draw on the electrical grid from other places. Solar panels for the overhead lights, even wind turbines possibly. So can you just talk about that, whether you looked at, as many buildings seem to have, solar panels for the roof?
Pass this one to Omid and to Mario.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna kick it off, and Mario, please, come in as you feel like. Yes. So as you saw in our presentation today, and also previously in the previous session, we are looking at the project from whole life cycle analysis and reduction of carbon emission through the lens of the whole lifetime of the project. One of the design approaches that we had was trying to make a very efficient design so that we can reduce the embodied carbon of the project as much as possible. In addition to that, there are a set of standards, again, developed by Metrolinx as part of the subway design standards. And in that, Metrolinx team consolidated, again, looking at best practices of sustainability guidelines, such as LEED, such as Toronto Green Standards, such as Envision, and compiled a set of suggestions to be implemented for each station, such as, for example, in our case, green roofs, such as harvesting the rainwater, such as using permeable sidewalks, low albedo materials. Making sure that the thermal comfort in stations are taken care of. So these are all some of the ideas that we have explored in terms of trying to make sure that stations overall are following the sustainability agenda and going toward net zero and decarbonization of our infrastructure assets. In the case of solar panel itself, no, the stations don't have solar panels because of the fundamentally because of the economy of scale. So we had to choose between the green roofs and the way that it can help us with stormwater management and rainwater harvesting versus solar panels, and we chose green roof instead. So I hope I answered your question. Mario, did I miss something that you wanted to add?
No, that was a pretty thorough response. Thanks, Omid.
Thank you.
That was, thank you. Thorough and informative. And Omid, I think that you're going to have the last word tonight because we are bumping up on our time. To everybody who participated tonight, we apologize for the technical problems with the sound, but I'm hoping that we were able to give you good information. If you come back to this page tomorrow or the next day, you'll be able to see a recording of tonight's session, and we'll make sure that it's edited so that you get one feed without the interruptions, and hopefully if you came in late or are looking for all the information, you'll be able to see the recording of the session. Also, and I think Joshua, you mentioned this earlier, there is a questionnaire that Metrolinx has provided so that you can provide your input on the topics that were discussed tonight. You can go to the URL that was given out earlier, or if you're on the page right now, right under presentation materials, there's a yellow button that says tell us what you think about the Martin Grove and Kipling station design. Click on that and you'll find a questionnaire that Metrolinx has prepared, and that will be taken into account. And I think, as you said earlier, Joshua, there were 200 responses to the last one, so it's a great way to have your input. So that's about it tonight. Thank you to Gurjeet and Aman, who worked hard over in the Zoom room and made it through, got people's input, even if we had sound problems. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everybody who participated. And as Joshua said, there will be more opportunities for you to learn about progress, to ask questions, and to have input. So from all of us tonight, thank you again. Please be safe.